I was always a hard worker, always being a hard worker, but I was never purposeful. And so I could always, what I did know is that I always knew how to make money. I was a hustler. I had 3 jobs at a time. I was a ticket broker. Like I did whatever it took to get the things that I wanted. And when I realized that at 40, if I were going to be 40, how do I want to be 40? Do I want to be 40 working 3 jobs, or do I want to figure something else out? And so that's when I was in my 30s, I got my real estate license again. And because I'd had it before, I didn't do anything with it. And when I decided to go into real estate, I realized that I actually did not like buyers or sellers. It just took me a long time to realize that. But I'd probably gotten burned from working in restaurant world so long that I was just kind of peopled out. And I knew that I loved leadership because I would go around the country and I'd open and launch restaurants, and I'd hire teams, and it was like the orchestra conductor. So I thought, well, what could I do? And I moved to Amarillo, Texas, at this point to be with my fiance, now husband. I was selling in Denver. I was making $400,000 or $500,000 a year, selling real estate. I did really well. I did house hunters. I just was consistent. I knew how to make good relationships, and I did it through things I loved. Number one, you have to be authentic. Number one. And when I moved to Amarillo, Texas, I thought, well, I don't want to sell houses. I hate Texas. And these people don't know. And the average sales price is about 1/3 of what I was used to selling. So then I was a little snotty. And I just didn't want to start over again because I'd already moved to Denver from Ohio. And so I thought I'll go into leadership. And my husband's like, what? And at this point, I'd gotten bought by Coldwell Banker. I left KW, and I was a Coldwell Banker agent in Denver. And don't do that. It was a mistake. I'll fill you in. Great people, not my people. And I called the regional office in Texas, and I said, I want to be a team leader in Amarillo, Texas. And they said, well, you're a Coldwell Banker agent. I go, yeah, but I want to be the team leader in Amarillo. I'm like, well, we have a team leader. And I thought, well, okay, but you don't have a team, you need me. And they said, well, we have 60 agents. We've had 60 agents for 5 years. Well, let's talk. It was the operating partner. So I had an interview with the operating partner, which was the longest interview of my entire life. It was 4.5 hours without something to eat or drink. And that was ridiculous because they're all high C, if you know the disc. And I was like, who is this? I am never working for this human. But I always believed in Keller Williams, right? I always believed at the bigger opportunity. And at that point, we had so many entrepreneurs. We have way more now, but we had so many entrepreneurs. And what I understood is that I could lead or impact people and build wealth, but not one by selling houses. I could do it a greater good, a whole, because Keller Williams, I could own a Keller Williams someday. By the way, I failed high school. I just want to be very clear. I'm going to make a scholarship for the bottom 25% person who had the biggest hustle. I am, for real. So when I got to Amarillo, I took a salary of $30,000. I just wanted in, and then I would prove my worth of what I would do. And I thought I was crazy, but my husband made a salary. And so he said, if you think you can pull this off, then pull it off. And so the first year, I said, after the first year, I will expect a bonus, but I'm willing to do it for $30,000. And I drove 50 miles each way to work every day. I was so committed because I believed in something greater than what was in front of me. And we were at the same agent count. I was the assistant team leader / PC. And I just went and did it anyway, no matter who was in front of me. The OP I hadn't seen in 3 years. The team leader, his nickname was Grumpy, which was not awesome in our culture. And the office was known as Killer Women, not Keller Williams. It was a Prudential that turned out that these Prudential people went and opened up a KW. And there were people fighting in the hallway. There's a lot of drama. And I'm like, ugh. So what I did is just stay to the core fundamentals of what I knew Keller Williams to be: culture, training, technology, and systems. And I didn't know Amarillo, Texas real estate. I didn't know any player in town, but I knew the models and systems of KW. And so that was my teacher. And I started in this path of, I'm going to show up. I'm going to raise my hand every day. I'm going to get dressed and I'm going to go to work and the opportunities will come. Because that's KW is not, where's my opportunity? And then I'll show up. We are not that group. It is, I've been showing up and now we are excited because we want to offer you an opportunity. Long story short, my husband got transferred. So I moved to Denver and became a team leader in 2013 in an office in Arvada, Colorado. And we went from 0 to number 1 in our market in 2 years. And Remax is everywhere around me, as everyone knows, in Denver. They tried to stop me. I was very disruptive, which was really fun. And it shook me at first. And then I said, thank you. And in that, I had asked for ownership. And they said, when you hear this, when you get this, you'll get this. Well, I did. And then they changed that rule. So I knew I had to make a decision at that point. And where am I going to go? Because now I put it in the universe that I'm going to own Keller Williams offices, because I said that in 2010. And that's that's what brought me to Chicago, is that I'd asked Mark Willis and Gary, where would I go if I wanted to own franchises? And they said, you have to go to Illinois. And I'm like, what? I'm from there. Hell no, I'm never living there again. And here I am. So fast forward, one of the biggest contributors of understanding is me staying true to my North Star of what I said I wanted. And I've always had a lot of confidence, but I didn't have self-worth, if that makes sense. And internally, I had to really come to terms with, why do I deserve this if I'm not a great student? I'm kind of a mess, right? Life shows up all around me, but I knew I could make money. And it was then that I had to make a decision that I was going to change the way of what wealth really meant. And I was never going to live again the way that I was raised. And it really came from that decision of making a choice of like, I'm going to go get this. Because I don't care. There are so many realtors that make $1 million, but they don't build any wealth. And so when I understood the difference of what making money versus building wealth is, and I learned it pretty late in life, that's when my world changed. And it happened with my partner. And when I came to Naperville, I took half the paycheck that I was making in Denver, right? So I went from 400,000 to 30,000, which some might call me dumb, but I realized it was a massive investment in myself now. And then I moved from Denver to Naperville and I took half the salary. And I took it because I knew what was ahead if I did my job. And so in 6 years I've been here, it made me a millionaire. And so when we talk about wealth building, it's not what it just does for me, but it's what it's going to do for my generations and I have 3 bonus daughters. And I realize now that God put me in their life and put them in front of me so I could change their values too, of what's important, and teaching them, because no matter what, they're always watching. And they were hell. Who's a step parent here? Anybody? Raise your hand. You are the unspoken heroes of everything. And so for those of you that are married to a step parent, thank them, because they never get thanked, right? I had to go to therapy, but I also understood being a step parent is that when they feel they're saying yes to you, they're saying no to their parent, they want that love more than anything. Anyone a child of a divorced family? Is that true? Shannon, Elizabeth? Yeah, right. And I didn't know that. So I was just mad. I was mad at them. But when I understood and had some understanding about why they're making those decisions, you can't be angry at that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I think understanding my big why of what I was going to do and what was right in front of me and how I was going to maximize that opportunity is what really changed my opinion. And it was slowly, then suddenly. And when I say it's slowly, then suddenly, someone just said, where'd you come from? I'm like, I've been with KW 20 years. Like, what are you talking about? But I think when you can get a mindset around wealth rather than making money and what abundance looks like, and if you do the right thing, you'll always be provided for.
Hey, Caryn, what was your epiphany? Well, you mentioned there was a moment that you realized there was a difference between making money and making wealth. What was the catalyst for the shakeup on that?
It was actually a conversation with one of my girlfriends. She was a nanny and in college. And she said that someone said to her, no matter how much money I make, I'm still left with the same amount every month because I then get a nicer car and I get a nicer this and I get a nicer this. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wait, there's so much truth. The Millionaire Next Door is 100% true. There's so much truth in that. And I thought, well, why that logically that's dumb, but I really like nice things. So where is that middle? Because what I recognized through my patterns is that I could generate money, but I still had no wealth. So it didn't matter if I made 400 or I made 30. And so what coaching and accountability did for me is that in my first 6 months with Pete and doing check-ins just on my personal side, it was, I saved $40,000 in my first 6 months. I took half the salary, I moved, and I saved money. I had never saved $8,000. And now I have 40.
What was that like for you, changing that?
I have chills right now because it was not that long ago. It still doesn't seem real that I could even do that. Mm-hmm. And this is when I get emotional because I love my husband most days. I'm just kidding. Jeb and Ginger have met him.
Why is my wife laughing?
And what it did is because my husband went on the road in oil and gas and he made great money and he had to do that so I could fulfill my dreams. So I could make $30,000 and then $45,000 and then $60,000. Right. And so he sacrificed and he always provided for his family. And I realized what it did do. It did more than I ever thought possible. And what it did is it allowed my husband to be able to quit his job that was going to kill him with stress. And so that he could go do whatever it was that he wanted. And I didn't even know that I would ever be that selfless and like give up money because I felt like I was selfish because I hoarded money as the youngest of 5. Does that make sense? Like we become like pound dogs. And I didn't want to share it, but I realized when I knew really what love was after a few failed relationships, that I was how life-changing because he grew up very poor. He grew up in a log cabin with no running water, electricity in the Colorado as a child of a Jehovah's Witness leader. And he didn't have electricity or running water for his first 6 or 7 years. Hot baths by the kettle, like it was poor. And I thought, I get to go home today and say, I got it. And it doesn't matter if it's your spouse or a friend or a gift to give freely to people that need it, that don't even ask for it. That's what changes the world is one person at a time. And by allowing that, I just set an example for my daughters, right? Because their mom has never been able to do anything on her own. She was married 5 days after their divorce was final, right? And obviously she's probably had a few relationships since then that no longer works. And so when I can remain steady and consistent and share why it's important and change generational wealth, I have grandkids too. I know how. I'm just kidding. Zoom filter and Botox. But what I've done is now all 3 of my stepdaughters, thanks to K-Score, are getting real estate license, and so is Joel. So I mean, K-Score, I was like, there's free real estate. Go my daughter. She's like, what? Yeah, they all registered. One in Amarillo, Texas, and because she lives outside there still. But this year, my husband hasn't made an income in 2 years, and I'm tired. I work a lot, but I also got to pay for my stepdaughter's wedding, and she and I were never close. And what a gift that was for us to be able to bond through this whole year of planning our wedding together. And so I don't think we realize what wealth can do, because I do know what Linda McKissick taught me is life gives to the givers and it takes from the takers.
That's good.
Yeah. And so if we keep giving with good heart and pure intent, with no agenda, then it does show up, but you got to show up. you know, it's fun. I mean, and now it's fun. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, but I look at the Kentucky tornadoes and you guys were affected too, right? But a 200-mile tornado, would we have ever thought in our lifetime, or COVID or illness or cancer, or who can we lift up? And I think K-score is the single greatest wealth building opportunity in the history of the United States for us as associates. I think we're underestimating the power of what that's going to do, that you can lift up someone in your community, in your church, in a group. Like, I went to all my tennis ladies. I haven't played in a year, I have a bad shoulder, but I said, ladies, myself and Keller Williams are offering scholarship and I'm doing it just for my tennis groups. Who's interested? And I just got I got a person in my downline and she just joined Kristen Jungle's team.
Nice.
So could I have changed her life?
Totally.
And her kids' lives. So we think about what impact means. It means it happens through relationships and helping people get what they want. So a few things I've learned is always have LLCs or S Corps, right? Run it like a business. Hire a tax professional. I went through an audit when I moved here in 2015. I just paid it off. I'm not kidding. And I was able to prove everything I don't want to lie. Like, I proved everything. And finally, you just anyone ever been through an audit? You don't have to raise your hand, but eventually you just lay back and go. And it was a random, what do you want? And they said, we want $78,000. And I'm like, stay out of debt. It is red light, green light. That has hurt me so much, is spending what I didn't have. Right? Make good decisions, because you're role modeling for everybody around you too. And understand money and the path of money and the path of wealth and where it can go and what it can do. But none of that will happen if you're not clear on your goals and why you're doing this, or what it is that you're doing, or what you're wanting to accomplish. And what I challenge everybody to do is not laugh at each other's goals. And I had an agent walk in my office. He was from the Minnesota Market Center. And I said, what's your big goal? And he goes, I want to close 500 million a year. And I go, oh my God, that's freaking awesome. And he said, you're the first person that hasn't laughed at me. I know it's heart rate crushing. And I don't care if it's pay off $8,000 or make $20,000. I don't care what it is, but put it out there to each other, or pay off a house by the time you're 50, or no matter what the goal is. And also reward yourself for small goals. Like, my husband called me today because he paid off medical bills that we've had. Because that stuff is just hanging out there, right? It's just hanging out there. And why don't we take care of that stuff to help us move forward? Right? It's small steps to get you, and budgeting. I don't care. Like, my Botox is in my budget. There's no shame. It's accounted for.
I can. Hey, Caryn, can you share, I think when you moved to Illinois, something that was super instrumental in your growth was your partnership with Pete, right? Like, you aligned yourself with the right person. And of course, your grit did it. I mean, you wouldn't be where you are right now if you didn't dig in and do it. Just go for it, right? And you were willing to sacrifice for that vision that you had for yourself, which is amazing.
Well, when we ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at your potential? You don't have to say it out loud. Everybody knows. Right? I know where I was, and I knew that I wasn't living like my biggest life. And Oprah life was like my biggest life. So it really became head down. How can I be a student of everything? And I listen and I ask questions. And Pete and I just talked about this last week, is we drew the path of how we built this. So we had 128 agents in Naperville in 2015. And then we bought Glen Ellen because unfortunately the OP passed away. So that was an unintended opportunity, not benefit, because Dave's a really good dude. And then we launched Downers Grove, and that's why I needed that $40,000, is because I wanted to invest in a market center.
Yeah.
Right. So that 40,000, because I also helped build the core group, I was gifted 2.5%. And so that, I don't own a ton of that. but it got me in it. And then then I bought Geneva. And that was scary as hell to write. Everyone thinks they know what the OP does until you sign your name on that franchise and your whole world changes. A document is pretty serious.
Yeah.
And then I met Jeb and Ginger when I was in April. What year was that? 16?
No, 17. Oh, actually it was 16 because Jeb and I come up and saw you and Pete
When Jeb
before we even made the decision to launch. Yeah, it was 16.
Yeah, it was when Jeb didn't like me.
Called out, Jeb.
I'm
You know
laughing.
what? It just took a year. It took a year, but it's also like, right? The time, you also have to believe in timing, but you can execute that timing on your own timeline. And then we bought Geneva, and then we opened our business center in Plainfield, and then we opened, I'm like, sometimes I forget them. Like now, that's crazy, right? 6 years ago, I was in debt. I couldn't save money. And I'm like, wait. And then now we've opened Title, and then we have Title franchises, and I have a marketing company, and then I have photography. And what it's turned into is I own like 18 companies right now that I didn't even know I could ever own.
Right. And Aurora.
Yeah. And then we just did a business center in Elgin. We're opening in Schaumburg. And now I don't put any money in because I've earned the opportunity because I did the work. Right. So now I run leadership fundamentals for K. Now I have a contract with KW, and it just opened because I put my head down and did the work. And I never looked up and said, who's going to do it for me, or who's going to help me, or I'm going to wait for this. That never occurred to me to wait for anybody to hand me something. When people say, well, what does the region do for you? I'm like, I've never waited for the region to provide anything for me. I just go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if I can't find it, but I think being a resourceful connector of who's good at what became really help. And I booked a lot of credit in some banks of favors too, as I did a lot of things for free. And my husband had always said to me, when are you going to start getting paid what you're worth? Because he had an employee mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry. Right.
Hey,
But
Caryn.
now, tell them about your new role that you got. What was it? Has it been a year?
We're almost at a year.
Mhm.
I did. And so, well, okay, I'll tell you this story. I have a couple of things to say around this.
Mhm.
So I was a team leader for 12 years, which means I was in for 93 in team leader years. You only know what that, I mean, and it had done well. I was making great money. I was making great. I'd earned the right, I started at 30, so I'd made great money, but I was tired. COVID. I was tired. 12 years is a long time. And I was like, I'm ready for my next opportunity. And I was already an operating partner. And I knew that I was going to retire from the team leader role. And I probably had enough money to survive, to live on without me taking that team leader salary. I just couldn't buy nice things anymore again. I'd have to reset. Mm-hmm. Right. By the way, I spent $300,000 on a house. Like I really like to live. I'm never going to be house poor. I used to sell those houses to people, and I'm thinking, you're crazy right now. I'd rather be able to have freedom than a huge house. So I didn't know what I was going to do, but I got a call from KW, from Jason and Gary. And they said, we have an opportunity for you if you're interested. And I go, what is it? And they said, this is April or May of 2020. Wait, yeah, 2020. And they knew I was stepping out of the role. And they said, would you want to come down to Austin and run Gary's market centers? And I'm like, Gary doesn't even know who I am. But I'd made an impact in each market center, each territory I've been in so far. And I said, let me think about that. And it gave me zero energy. I'm not going to lie. I thought, what an honor. Interesting. Like, you coach with Gary every week. And I'm like, listen, for a girl 10 years ago, that sounds amazing. I don't know if I have the energy for this right now. I'm worn out. And that could have been a ton of money. I mean, I'm guessing I probably would have made good money. Also, measuring your financial thermostat, by the way, is clutch. Because a lot of money to you and a lot of money to me may be two different things. And so when I'm interviewing people, I ask them, what does a lot of money to you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I don't know where I'm going to start with them emotionally about how they feel about money, and it's not greed, it's what it can do. Right? If they think a lot of money is $50,000, that's awesome. Now I have an opportunity to go raise their bar, which I have an agent that you should talk to after this, actually. Schedule her about generational wealth building, what she's learned.
Okay.
So then I got a call from Mo Anderson, my standards icon. And she said, I have an opportunity. We're looking for a new RD in Oklahoma, which makes a lot of sense because my husband lives in Oklahoma and I commute. And I said, well, is there ownership of the region? Well, no. And I'm like, well, I don't know then. And I went to her house, by the way. I went to McKissick's house. I went to their houses. It was so fun. I got to meet her husband. Her closet is outstanding. And it's so weird to see these people's closets because like I'm Midwest. And so we just don't ask those things.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a great opportunity, but yet I didn't have enough energy. I didn't have a lot of energy behind it. So I'm like, okay, I'll coach some people. I'll figure it out. But for the first time in my life, I had done the work to then have a choice. And I'm like, okay, it'll reveal itself. And then Tony Brody reached out, and Tony Brody is the regional operating partner for Northern California, Hawaii, and then Maryland, DC. How frank can I be on this?
Very frank.
Okay. I got a text one night, like 9 o'clock. I'm like, oh, he's had a cocktail. He's like, Caryn, I'm looking for an RD to start. Are you interested? 1, F you, Brody, F off, Brody, 10, maybe. And I've known him for a long time. And I said, what territory or what region? He said, Northern California, Hawaii. And I was like, oh, damn it. I've never been to Hawaii.
Me either.
Right. And I've always said, literally for 10 years, that's the greatest region in the country. Be careful what you put out there.
Yeah.
It's Napa, it's Tahoe, it's San Francisco, Carmel, Monterey, and Hawaii. And I've never been. I'm like, maybe. I said, send me all your financials. Okay. I can't balance a checkbook, but I did become a student of the Market Center financials. And I sent them, and overnight I read all of them. 35 offices. I went through them and I go, oh, damn, this is the biggest opportunity inside Keller Williams, which is what they said about Illinois. And then our gingers came along. And so I said, well, there's a couple things. I want ownership in the region. I'm not moving. And you have to stay the fuck out of my way. And he's like, number 3, I can do. Let me check on 1 and 2 because they've never had an RD not move. But we have COVID right now.
Yeah.
And I said, I just put my mom in memory care for dementia, and I'm not willing to leave her right now. I just need to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad's passed. And so he's like, okay. And he came back to me and he's like, let's go through the process. And we went through career visioning again. And we went through it. And it was an extraordinary experience. And it was the motivational interview again. And now my financial thermostat is raised. And I had to interview with Gary, and it was scary, and Mark. And Mark King and I did not get along, and we really chapped each other's asses for a long time, but we got some clearing and realized we're probably the same person. And it was a really nice conversation, and he's been outstanding. So Gary said, who taught you so much about financials? And I said, anybody I asked. And it was at that point that I realized that this company we're with is so remarkable because I have never called someone and asked for help and they've said no. So if we don't raise our hand and go, I want to learn about this, Ginger or Alicia, who do you know that does this, right? Alicia will just text me and say, who do you know that does this well? Or she'll go find out. She's very connected, especially in YPN. I'm going to start an OPN, by the way. So if you're all interested.
Hallelujah.
So what earned me that opportunity was not because of how I showed up in the past year, it's how I showed up in the past 10 years. And I was consistent and reliable. And I think reliable leadership is something we don't talk enough about. And all I did was ask questions. Was anyone the annoying ADD kid in grade school? Raise your hand. Okay, Elizabeth, are you, I think she was already, I think we were connected already. So Elizabeth, it was annoying to people, right?
Yes.
But it's actually a gift.
Yeah, it served me well.
Right. And it's then what you take with it and what you do with it. And so if you're thirsty for knowledge or you're thirsty for mindset, because this company is a human development company. That's what it is how do I become a better version of myself? And how do I become a better leader? And who's going to love me enough to call me out? Right? Because I always say, I'm never going to love anybody into failure. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. Because I love you. And at no other company, because honestly, it's because we have a cap. So when I went to Coldwell Banker and they made me a great offer, and I thought, and it was a luxury only office. And I thought that's where I needed to be. I was ready for that next step. And what it turned out to be is I became another number, because when I didn't give them as much year 2 as I did year 1, my office changed, everything changed. And then I realized that's why they don't know about me, because what they care is the revenue they're going to earn from me. And if we don't connect the dots on the power that everything that is done with purpose inside KW and thoughtfulness, is the cap is the culture, because I get to know what's important to Alicia or important to Ginger. I don't really care about Jeb. I'm just kidding. Right? And so that's what our culture is because we all win together. And I think we miss the power in that. And then it's the other side of when I went to that company, and it's a good company, I have good friends from there. Instead of celebrating an achievement or accomplishment or success, it was, where'd you get that listing? Marianne's nodding. Is this the Marianne?
This is the Marianne.
Right? It's where'd you get that? It's a scarcity versus an abundance mindset instead of celebrating. And so when we can live in a world that abundance is evident all around us, and we're in alignment that way, that's when the magic comes together, if we do it together. And so we can celebrate successes, celebrate people, a milestone or a benchmark or something they accomplished, rather than being jealous about how they got there. Because that's why I say we're invite only. Like, we're not for everybody. I invited an agent today, said, I'm looking at this. I go, you should go there. I encouraged her, please. Right? How powerful does that become when we can protect ourselves and insulate ourselves, because it's not about the money. It's about what the money can do. And so that's where it's like, am I rich or am I wealthy? Right? And it's very uncomfortable. Money's very uncomfortable for all of us. Who's ever worked with a first-time buyer? Raise your hand. Okay. So money's awkward. My parents were born in the 30s. So we don't talk about really religion or money or politics. It's improper. And I wear lipstick because I have a very Southern mother, she would say. Are you going to leave without your face on? That's my mother. And when we give permission, so when I would talk to people I'm like, oh, what's your split, or what's this? But like, ooh, they get all turned off. But because we're such a different brain here of like, well, we're all valued the same, or you're on this deal at Coldwell Banker, don't tell anybody because they're not on that deal. And that's where divisiveness comes in too. Mm-hmm. Right. So when we can establish what it is that we want, and more importantly, why we want it. And you may not know today, and it's going to change.
Mm-hmm. Can we pause on that and really just dwell in that for a minute? We have a lot of new agents, and we have some agents who are still learning what their big why is and understanding What are some steps you think that they should take to really dig in? Because the understanding your big why is really what's going to drive you to more wealth. So what would you say to someone who's still learning or trying to decide what their deeper meaning is?
Well, mine was, my husband didn't understand why I love KW so much. He's like, what are you doing? I said, come to family reunion with me. Ginger, you're nodding, like this might've been your scenario too. And he came, and Dave Ramsey was the speaker.
Mm.
And that was not by coincidence. It was 2013, maybe. And in the room of 18,000 people, and my husband and I were in debt, 200,000 to 300,000 aside from a home, like just life, right? And he supports 3 children, and it was not great. And he said, I give you all permission to be wealthy. And something I needed was that permission. So I give everyone today permission to be wealthy. Not that I am the rock star person, but I think we feel bad or guilt. Who was raised Catholic? Anyone else here? It's Shannon, we got work to do, right? Because the guilt. So when we're working through our big why is what gets you up every day? Why do you do it? And it's not why do you do it because you should, it's why do you do it because what will it bring you? It'll bring me $300,000. Well, what does 300,000 do for you? Well, it pays my bills and I can take a vacation. Where would you go? Right? What's more important to you? Is it time or money? Because either way, you got to do the work. Or if your spouse or partner or loved one said, what would you want more of, time or money from your spouse? What would they say? They'd probably say time. And something happened. Ginger, were you in Gary's mastermind group a few weeks ago? Okay. That agent one. So I heard this, but actually I was repeating the story and someone's like, I was actually there, and that's, yeah. So I want you to think about what we're doing because our life is finite, and especially with COVID, right? What I learned is this woman told a story that she's a top agent. She's always on her phone. Okay. And you look at these people like, how do they work 3 hours a week? It's true, they can. And her children complain about it. And as a daughter of a realtor, I get it because my mom was always gone, right? Because we didn't have technology. And she was walking, they were at a cemetery visiting a family member or something. They were doing a service. And she said, oh, and the son was asking, what is it? Why do they have these emblems or whatever? Like, oh, it's what they love is the church or a Bible or a sport or fishing or like things they loved. And there were these little markers throughout it. And she was explaining like, that's what they love to do. And so that's how they're honoring in this, memorial or whatever, little trinkets that could be by the site. And he said, well, Mom, I know what I'm going to put on yours. We're going to put a cell phone on there.
Wow.
Ouch.
And Gary, they said the whole room, 300 people, it just went. Because is that what we're doing? Why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And so was that a life-changing moment? Because it was a life-changing moment for me to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing what, and if we have not recognized like through this pandemic of, are we doing it purposely? Are we doing it better? And are we in the relationships we need to be in and really following, how's my life? How's my spirituality? How's my fitness? How's my mental health? My husband suffers from depression, severe depression, right? And this past years has not been easy. And yet, it was actually, Ginger knows this, it was a Keller Williams agent that saved my husband's life. And it's been hard. But this agent was so the vulnerability with our company is this high producing agent that makes $3 million a year said, I've had some family challenges and I took this program and sent me this link and I sent it to my husband. And it was in that, as I was interviewing for the regional director job and wedding dress shopping in Dallas with my stepdaughter, it was a messy weekend. My husband said he booked a meeting with this. And this person said, I need to have you and your wife on, this therapist. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the last thing I'm going to do. I interviewed all week. I'm exhausted. I have to go wedding dress shopping with my husband's ex-wife. There's nothing worse than that. Now I have got to do this because my husband is suffering, but I don't know what it's like. And I'm committed to him. And he said that day that he woke up every day to not know how to try to not put a 45 in his mouth. And that's how bad it was in January.
Wow.
But if Andrew Bloom in California had not been with KW, because he'd come over from Remax after like 20 or 30 years, if I didn't get to meet Andrew Bloom and that was not put in front of me, my husband wouldn't be here today. And I never met Andrew Bloom until in person until last week. But when I say this company will change lives and we welcome entrepreneurs and they bless you to go build a business and there is no ceiling in doing whatever we want to do, right? It's just, are you willing to really be committed to do it? Because there is no better place. Like, I never knew what was possible. So I have that tattooed on me now. And Keller Williams sent me to South Africa. And now I'm going to Portugal and Malaysia because I want to travel the world and I want KW to pay for it. I mean, I do. And so I do a lot of worldwide stuff because I just want to be in better relationships. So when the borders open up, that I'm off. So it's whatever it is that you want. This is the place that's going to fill it for you. And there's no one. The thing I love about Alicia and Ginger is they are never afraid to ask for help, and humility will get you far greater than having an ego. And the only time I've seen someone leave Keller Williams not on their terms is because of their ego. I mean, don't you agree, Ginger? Look at our leadership, like everyone that's been gone, it's all ego.
Yeah.
And so it's about being real. So going back to the first time buyer, just be okay with where you are today and what you can do differently moving forward, because don't have regrets. So when we're panicking and you say a first time buyer, we're just going to run your credit and then what happens to them? Panic, right?
Mm.
So run your own credit right now of your self-confidence and self-worth for your financial thermostat. And more importantly, go through the career visioning process with each other and do a motivational interview with each other, because that will get to the root cause of really why you're doing it. And you're going to have to do it with more than one person. And it can be a friend or a family or anyone in KW because they know the process. But I'd done it with McKissick's and they couldn't get it out of me. And these are the biggest wealth building people in the universe. But it wasn't until I'd interviewed with Mike Zwark and he got it out of me, my North Star, what it was. I didn't work with him, but he's my friend for life. And so when you put yourself out there in these relationships, they will pay it forward, and then you get to do it for someone too. Like, it's so powerful. It's such a big cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ginger and Jeb, why don't you share?
Put me on the spot.
I know that's why I did it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But when do we get into scarcity? Like, how do we stay out of scarcity or self-doubt and go do it anyway? Because I think why people don't do things is because they want to look good or be right. And what are either one of those really going to accomplish?
Nothing.
Well, they're scared.
It's fear.
It's fear.
When people are angry, it's fear. When dogs are angry, it's scary, it's fear, right? But what are we really afraid of?
Failing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? It's true. You're right. And also, people are afraid of success too.
Not feeling worthy.
Failing in front of people.
Yeah.
Looking
that
good.
goes back to looking good.
And that goes back to ego, right? That all goes back to ego. But
Or
if you've never
looking
failed,
good.
if you've never failed at anything, you are not playing big enough. So pardon me, Pam was going to say something. Someone?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I would say that goes back to looking good and wanting to be right.
And what does this accomplish? Like, what am I willing to accomplish? I think something else I realized moving away for 25 years and moving back is there's something about the Midwest that we come from know first. Has anyone moved away, moved back? Who's that? What's your name?
Sheila.
Sheila, where'd you move to and from? Oh, she's on mute.
You can put it in the chat if you
I am. No, the computer's on the other side of the room.
Okay.
We were military growing up, and then I married a military guy in my first marriage. So I moved, when I moved here, then I moved to New York, and then I moved back here.
You see, like, I think Californians have this entitled arrogance that they haven't, it's ridiculous. Like, but like, that's only in California, as I'm out there now as an RD. I'm like, no, that's not. You all think you're special and you're not. I think when I got back to Chicago, I'm like, oh my God, everyone comes from no, like the worst weather, the worst traffic, the worst this, the worst that. Like, I'm like, no, it's not. Get over yourself. Right. And it's this odd negativity that we automatically come from no, and we have a natural skepticism too, that it doesn't serve us. And so what if we always assumed the best intent? Because what I have to see in my leaders is that I believe truly in my heart that they don't wake up every day and say, how can I screw this up today? But sometimes I do. I come in hot sometimes, and it's not fair. And every day I have to check myself to be a little bit better. Right. And so how do we change our mindset around, yes, it's possible. Yes, it is possible. Because whose life can I change today? How fun is that? Whose life can I change today?
So Caryn, we have 9 minutes left. What is the number one thing that our agents can do right now, today, to start building their wealth?
Decide what they want and why they want it. I think you should have Pete come on to talk about, it's why do I want $100,000? What will it do for me? Why is that important to me? And it's okay to have values. Say, I like nice things. Like, there's no shame in putting out what it is that's important to you right now. And everybody's values are different and what they value. And so that's when we have to stay out of judgment. I like cars. I don't need big houses. Right. And so people would be like, she's ridiculous. But I like cars. So that's my thing. My husband loves horses. Unfortunately, they eat and require a lot of maintenance. They have more shoes than I do, so that's messed up. We found that horse, by the way. It was missing. We had a missing horse.
Oh no.
Wow.
We found
So
it.
you talked a lot about changing people's lives. You talked a little bit about K-score. You're the best. Like, you got me inspired about K-score, because there was even a coaching that I had that I was like, I don't know, I'm not on the K-score train here. So
I think for families, Alicia, I challenge her. I go to all your agents and say, who do you want to bring into business if they don't know what they want, but it's not going to cost you anything. So mine is restaurant people. Like, I've been using my profit share for the last 5 years to pay for restaurant people to go through real estate school. I don't even have to do that anymore. But I have 4 people that I've spent money on, right, that I used my profit share on. And now I'm like, wait a second. I could go to every restaurant group, like the company I worked for 13 years. I'm going to go to them and say, I want to offer a scholarship.
Or, it's an amazing Christmas gift, right? Like,
That's
hey,
what I believe. It's a Christmas gift for a cousin, a nephew, a family member that has talent and they don't believe in themselves yet. That's a gift. Are we really maxed? So every time I see an opportunity in front of me, I'm like, or a conversation or a tool or a lesson, I'm like, how many people can benefit from hearing this, learning from this, knowing this, or seeing this? Like, I want to maximize every opportunity that's in front of me. And also you have to be genuine and you have to be authentic. And that's what someone said is like, well, how do you become friends with all these people? And my response was organically. Right? Like, we can smell, we're all high D's, probably can smell BS a mile away.
are you okay if I open the floor for people to ask you questions?
Mhm.
All right, fire away. What questions do you have for Miss Caryn?
It's Caryn now because being a Karen sucks.
That's funny.
Being kind of rough.
So Caryn, do you think that You know what you were talking about, being right and looking bad. I find myself looking at what things are costing me, like what is really the cost to me sometimes, as
What would an
opposed to,
example be?
pardon me?
What would an example be?
Well, in my mind, when I was starting on this transaction coordinator journey, one of the things I said was, you know, I can only have thus many agents. And what it ended up costing me was there was a feeling of the other agents of missing out. And then when the agents I had left, then those agents that felt that left outedness, they were like, yeah, no, we don't need you. And it was interesting that my mindset of I can only have so many cost me having as many as I could have had, as many as I wanted. Like the cost, the impact of that was huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from that?
I learned to not make a decision based on my own emotional, oh my God, I'm so busy type thing.
Your
Like,
capacity
oh,
at that moment. Yeah.
yeah, like just take a step back, look at the big picture, relax and go, okay, this is manageable and here's what I can do.
So that's great, is doing the prep work now to build a bench so you can grow and getting ahead of it, being proactive rather than reactive, because you could build an entire company because Keller Williams is looking for these partners inside our world all the time. Right. So perhaps you could shorten that, you could reframe it every time someone has an ask, because it is a natural, like, no, like I can't do it, is let me think about how that could work. Can I get back to you? You don't have to have the answer right then.
Right. I'm new to Keller, but it's changed my mind. Just being here a year and a half ish, totally changed my mindset.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just our response, and that gives us permission to give it some time. And so I'm a high D. I like to make snap judgments or answer and give answers. I'm very decisive. So I've had to really reframe everything and go, oh, let me think about that, or go, that's interesting. So I can slow myself down, because it's much easier than to go exactly what you said is the cost. But now, you know, and you just did too, Pam, is you just helped all these people too.
Oh, good. I'm glad. That's awesome.
It's the cost of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And so now you can, who is interested in learning about this, that I remember I did everything for free for a long time before I earned the right to ask for an income. So if someone's interested in the role, could they do an internship with you?
Absolutely.
So how do you start building that bench now? Or could you hire a VA to train them so that they can train you? Or could you find an accounting person at the local college that you could, you know, or there are resources everywhere. We just sometimes got to look up.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm on that path already.
Thank you. That's awesome for sharing.
Thanks, Caryn.
What else? Does anybody else want to pick Caryn's brain? She's the one who keeps me in line. So you can't, I mean, if she can control me, she's got amazing wonders for you. So
No, I don't control you. You're just really coachable.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Caryn, earlier you spoke about debt management. What process did you use to organize your debt, and then what tactics did you deploy to attack it?
I love that question because I am an expert on this stuff. On debt, I am an expert. Okay. We'll get nitty gritty. Do you see I got excited about this? Well, I just got to be real. Like I'm telling you, like I am in it. I remember I was so broke in Colorado because I spent all my money. And the market had tanked. It was 2008, 9 or 10. It was somewhere around there. And I had a Toyota 4Runner, and I didn't have any money, and I was falling in love. So I'd like gained 10 pounds and I wasn't working because I just wanted to be with my husband all day, or boyfriend at the time. And I had to go show houses. And this is actually a defining moment because I've never forgotten. I know what gas station, I know what pump I was at. And I had no money and I was below broke. And I think my checking account was negative at this point. But I knew I had $5 on a Capital One card that had like a $300 limit on it. Like I'm talking low barrier of entry here. It's probably like a secured card at this point because my credit had gone in the toilet. I'd been in a marriage before that was really bad. And I had $5 on it. And I thought, I have to drive down to Castle Rock from Denver. So it's like 20 miles. And I have a 26-gallon tank. and I'm getting 8 miles to the gallon, I'm not going to make it. But at this time, it was when the gas stations would run your card for $1. Do you remember when they first started doing credit card at the pump, pay at the pump? So I was like, well, shit, they're not going to know it anyway. I'm just going to get an over limit fee. So I put that card in, crossing my fingers that it would go. So it approved it for $1, and I filled my tank and I showed houses. Well, I showed so many houses. She's like, can we stop for lunch? I told her I left my wallet at home. I just didn't have any money. Right. And it was like, I got to do something different. Like, I'm exhausted by this life. And so I realized I am in a cycle that I'm just not stopping, because what would happen is that I would make 50 or 60 grand in a month and I'd pay off all my debt. And then I would leave all my cash. So don't do that. Number one, quit shorting yourself from living. Oh yeah, that's first year in real estate. Number one. Number two, if you have anything on your credit report, if you can pay it off, they'll remove it from your credit report. And tell your clients this too. You say, if I pay this now, will you delete it from my credit? And they will. If there's a wrong phone number, if there's a wrong address, or any of your personal information is wrong, they cannot keep it on your credit report. I didn't know that. Did you guys know that? No, I didn't know. Katie's like, yeah. So that too. Number three is I took my high interest credit cards, because then I was playing the credit card shuffle, and I took my highest interest and I paid those down first, or transferred them. And then I started back with Dave Ramsey. Financial Peace University really helped me. Katie, I'll have to be. Oh, you worked in banking? Mm-hmm. And then that is like, if I had a 17% or a 29%, because if you pay it once, right, your credit card now has the right to jack up your card. My favorite call was to an IRS, anybody else. My first statement was, I need your help. Right. So when I got audited, they didn't put a lien on my house. They didn't put a lien, attach anything, because I was very proactive in my communications. And so I've been able to buy and sell houses all these years without anyone objecting. So get in front of it. Get in front of it. If you pay $25 a month to a medical, they will not touch you. People are reasonable, and most people want to help you. Right. So it's the highest interest, it's the credit cards, and it's closing those down one by one by one by one. And then it's, do I repair this car or do I replace it? Can I buy it used? It just really is what I want versus what I need. It is a snowball. But Dave Ramsey's, although I'm not that disciplined to do envelopes in this, and then profit first, paying yourself first, is so genius. It's silly, right? You give yourself, whenever you get paid or a check, is you give yourself that money first, and then that's what you can live on. But I also put 25% of my paychecks, or any check, away in an account that I don't have access to. I had to do it. Like, I have to be that disciplined with myself, because I know me. So if I don't see it, I don't spend it. And so at first it was 5%, and then it was 10%, and then it was 15 and 20. Now it's 20, 30 or 35. My husband doesn't know about it. I mean, he does, because he knows, but we are not allowed to, he doesn't know how much is in there. He's not allowed to touch it. My mother always taught me a woman needs a secret bank account. She's not wrong. Right. And so it's really it's about choices. COVID, everyone should be wealthier from COVID, because the market is up and we're spending less. Like, I didn't go to Starbucks every day. I took every subscription that I canceled from COVID and invested it in Robinhood. So I'd have $14 here and $30 here. And I got rid of my XM radio in my car because I wasn't driving, right? I don't need to spend that money. And then I invested it in something else. And then it was like gamifying it for me. You can gamify the whole thing. But there are so many Facebook groups about debt. And there's one that I really enjoy, and I'll have to find the name of it that I'm in. Hold on, let me find it, because it's really, really supportive.
One thing that I've been trying to teach some of our agents is we live in the right now generation, right?
Oh,
I can relate to people my age. We want it right now. We had the dot-com boom. We had I'm going to order Amazon. It's going to be here tomorrow. I'm going to go get my nails done. Yeah, right. And it's not removing the nails. It's not removing the hair. It's not removing the $5,000 car. Or the $500,000 house or whatever it is. It's recognizing maybe I don't need to spend $300 on my nails. Maybe I don't need to buy a $500,000 house if I'm not ready for it. Maybe I don't need to buy this dress because I just bought one last week. Maybe I don't need to go golfing because I just went on Tuesday. That I just made Ryan mad. Sorry, Ryan.
No, but
Sorry,
it's like,
Jim.
you know what? It's or do I do 9 holes instead of 18, right? Do I still get to do, is it an and? But I was thinking about something is when everything changed for me as I'm thinking about this now, is when I realized that I had nothing left to prove to anybody else. Pam's like, yep. Is that you, Pam, too? That's when my life changed, is when I could get, and it was Penelope that helped me, is when it led me to a place that I realized that I am okay with myself and who I am, and no one's going to fill my bucket, is when my wealth, everything wealthy in my wealth world opened up. Actually, it was that. And so getting to a place where, and you don't know it, I think it requires a coach. I just think you need a coach to help walk you down that path because we have so many blind spots.
Caryn, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for
Anytime.
pouring into our agents. I hope everyone had an amazing time today. Thank you. Everyone give a virtual round of applause. If
I'll
you will,
see
to
y'all
Miss
soon.
Caryn.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caryn.
Pardon me?
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I am honored by your presence.
Oh, sweet.
Okay. Bye, y'all. I'll
All
see
right,
you
take
soon.
care.
I'll give you
Thank
some
you.
names for follow-up you need to do. It was really
Okay.
nice
Yes,
time with you. Thanks for the ask.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Hans.
Bye.